Good afternoon. The Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Vice Chair Aldrich.
Present.
Chair Narayan.
Here.
President Green.
Present.
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
5 present. We have quorum.
Quorum being present, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from Thursday, November 20th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Vice Chair Aldrich.
Aye.
Chair Narayan.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. 5 aye votes.
All right. With that, we've sustained the motion to approve the minutes Thursday, November 20th. We have only 2 issues on the up for discussion today. First is the environmental impact of debris removal. I believe Julian is here from the administration. Okay. We'll take up the second item for discussion then while we get Julian here. Commissioner Hayward? The floor is yours, Commissioner.
All right, thank you. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Nate Hayward, the Commissioner of Corrections Division. I started my career at St. Louis County in 1993, worked my way up as a correction officer and got promoted up the ladder. I retired in August as the Deputy Director of Security at St. Louis County. And first, I want to thank you all, Chairman and members of the committee, for your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity to share this progress update on my first 90 days here at the Division of Corrections. Since assuming leadership at the Division of Corrections, I have taken action to strengthen operation, improve safety, and enhance the overall culture within the facility. In my first 90 days, I have focused on the building stabilization through staffing, reinforcing accountability, improving communication, and prioritizing both staff and residents' well-being. Together, these efforts reflect a commitment to transparency, professionalism, and creating a safer, more supportive environment for all who live and work within the Division of Corrections. I am excited to share with you all key focus and priorities and the progress we have made in our first 90 days, from safety protocols, staff development, leadership engagement. Start the PowerPoint. Today at Corrections Division, we have 706 residents. We have 51 females and 655 males. I think this is important to share this information with you all, let you understand the scope of the work that CJC staff does and the individuals we serve in our care. Okay, next slide. Since I started my career at CJC 90 days ago, I brought with me priorities in taking the leadership of the Division of Corrections. I have, through my experience, I felt like feedback was important, to get feedback from staff and also residents at the same time. So some of the things that I learned was operation effectiveness, transparency, professionalism, safety, security, and policies. And some of them, the key points I'm going to discuss today. With these guiding principles in mind, I have listened and observed, and from that development, a plan focused heavily on the residents of the City Justice Center and also the safety of our staff and residents. For residents, we have focused on resident support, resident education and training, facility renewal, and resident stewardship. For safety, of two focus areas have been hiring and staffing, promoting the culture of safety. Next slide is we implemented some things when I first arrived 90 days ago when I did the tour and inside CJC. When I first arrived, a lot of residents was complaining about not being out their cells. I went around and went cell to cell and talked to these guys, and I met with leadership, and immediately we start letting them out at least 3-4 times a day, hours a day, because they was telling me that they wasn't getting out and they wasn't able to communicate with their families. They wasn't getting out and taking showers. So we immediately let people out for 3 to 4 hours a day. And that was with the same staff that was at the jail when I arrived. Also, we just had a talent show in one of the worst units on Tuesday. They performed a nice talent show. The guys did an excellent job, and that was something that they mentioned to me when I first arrived, that this is what they wanted to do. And some people thought that it was going to work, but they proved us all wrong, because, I mean, this is something I've done when I was a deputy director at St. Louis County, and let people show their talents. And so I was excited about it. It was successful, and we had a good time. Some guys did gospel music, and some guys did regular rapping. And it was an awesome time to see these guys show their talents. Also, we updated the policies. We had 187 different policies that haven't been updated since 2020. Yeah, thank you. Since 2020. So far, we have 27 policies that's left under review. And all these policies are according to ACA accreditation standards. And that's what we wanted to make sure that we are doing. Also, we updated the handbook, rule book, because that was some of the concerns that the residents informed me, that the rule book haven't been updated. So we updated the rule book from the first page all the way to the end. Also, we created a commissioner tour. The commissioner tour is with the whole crew of everybody. When I was doing the tour, a lot of residents, they complained they never seen the case manager. They never seen the unit manager. They had issues with their plumbing. They had issues with the phones. So what I did, I want everybody to come and do a tour with me. So we have the maintenance crew that comes up, nurse come, the medical, mental health team comes up, and also locksmith and the deputy commissioners, along with myself. We all go up and tour the units together. And everyone, when they ask me, all the residents, they say, I haven't seen a case manager. Here's a case manager right here. Something wrong with their toilets. I have maintenance right there. They fix it on the spot. And if anything wrong with the locks, we fix it immediately. And that's what we've been doing since I arrived. Okay, so we have programs that's over at the CJC, but I want to highlight the two main programs. That's Unlock Labs. This is a program that we have for the female population right now with laptops. They get out, go to the MP room, and get on the laptops, and helps them learn job skills, also help them with education, development, and also provide them of getting out their cells more. One female met with the reporters, and this is the quote that she told the reporter: being locked up in these four walls all day long, when we're already locked up in here, it gets us out of our own mind for a little bit to have a little fun. ServSafe is another program. We just had a graduation today. The class started a month ago, and they completed the ServSafe. If some people that don't know about ServSafe, this is a program that you have to pass the food handling portion of it to work in restaurants and hotel restaurant. It's an excellent program. When I was working at St. Louis County in 2020, I started that program also. That was during the COVID time, and they said we couldn't do it because of COVID, but I wrote a proposal to the director, and we was able to get everyone vaccinated, and then everyone had to wear masks while they was in the class. And we had both portion of it. It's a food handling portion, and also it's a portion for the management side of it too. I had about 50 people that took the first part, and then the second part, it was 48 people that took it, 20 passed. That management part is pretty thorough and pretty hard. It's an 8 weeks class. A lot of people didn't pass it. I met a guy at Six Flags. He ran up and hugged me and thanked me, introduced me to his family because he was in that program. Now he's working at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He's a manager, and he's doing well. And I was excited. He was excited. His family walked around Six Flags with my family and myself, and we just talked about his success. And that made my day. So we're looking forward to adding that portion to it at CJC next year when I spoke with the manager at the food service. Okay. Our key focus areas has been safety. We believe that empowering residents and engaging them in the care of the facility not only creates ownership, but also builds value skills. So when I first arrived to CJC, my first tour, I went home and I couldn't sleep. I wrote an assessment report at 2 in the morning, and it was a 4-page report. When I came in at 6 in the morning, I gave it to my deputies, the commissioner, and I informed them we had work to do. The place needed cleaning thoroughly, and right away, we power wash housing units and also in the halls. After that, we created a cleaning crew, the residence workers. We have a cleaning crew now, and we also have a painting crew. This group of residents have cleaned areas that needed cleaning and also painted the 5th floor, the 4th floor, the 3rd floor, and also admissions side when residents first arrive in CJC. The first level, when you walk into CJC, our maintenance crew, I'll ask them to wax the floor and paint in that area. That looks brand new now also. It has a whole different look. I appreciate all the hard work and dedication that they put into this. the team really got the job done after requesting this, and also the residents that painted inside. That helped out a great deal because we couldn't get our maintenance workers to do all the work that needed to be done because of the shortage. But this helped with the residents pitching in, helping us out. As part of the safety, we are investing in staff and our protocols. We have begun renewing our culture of safety in the residents and staff through training, tours, and hiring. While conducting tours, a couple of residents, informed me on how the contraband drugs was getting into the facility. And one of the residents informed me that a lot of times some of our residents are having family members put the liquid drugs on paper that's supposed to be legal work. And so when I was at St. Louis County, we brought this machine that scanned all legal work to see if they have any type of liquid drug on the paperwork. So this is something that we are purchasing to try to help eliminate the drugs that's entering city jail. Right now, I start copying it because that machine won't be here until like February. So now we're doing another version of what we did at St. Louis County. We pull the residents out, copy the legal work in front of them, and give them the copy. And then we put the legal work in their property whenever they suspect some type of drug liquid is on the legal work. And this is something this information came from the resident that's inside the institution while we doing our tours. They slipped me a note. And the good thing is, when you walk around inside of the institution, the guys get to trust you and get to communicate with you. Some of them tell me they never really interact with a commissioner before, but like I tell them, I'm human just like they are. So we all human, so everyone should be able to communicate with everybody. Our focus doesn't stop. We try to get as much resources and investing in our next generation of correction staff. We have taken the steps by conducting job fairs. About a month ago, we had our first job fair that CJC had last month. This is the first one. We had about 40 interviews. We hired 24 people that came out and applied for the job. That was a very successful job fair. And this is something that I wanted to do because when at St. Louis County, we paid this agency $450,000 to recruit. And when that information came to me about getting the same agency for CJC, I refused to even request something like that because I didn't want to waste the money like we did at St. Louis County. So I took it upon myself and did some heavy recruiting, went on all the media sites and just start promoting recruitment. The recruitment shot up to at least 150 applicants for COs, correction officers, and so far we've been interviewing every week for correction officers. We have the largest graduation of cadets on December the 30th. It's going to be here. We have permission to have it here at City Hall. You're all welcome to come if you have some time. I'm excited about this because I want to see CJC be successful, and that's what I preached to my team over at CJC. When I first arrived, and I had my supervisor meeting and also staff meeting, that was one of the questions that I asked. Who wants to see this place be successful? Several people raised their hand, several people didn't. But it's okay, because we're going to be successful with you or without you, but I just want everybody to know where we're heading, and we heading for success at CJC. Right now, I have a total of 67 candidates waiting for interviews for correction officers. And moving forward for the next 90 days, I'm looking for our leadership. I'm looking for our leadership and also trying to develop them in training and also working on improvements at the facility. We need a lot of improvements and more residents program, because that is something that residents requested, that they wanted more programs, and that's what we're looking forward to. We have several organizations already reaching out to us to come inside and teach some programs and some type of training for the residents. And I'm excited about that, because that was my position back in 2018 at St. Louis County. I was over programs. So I'm excited about that, to have more programs come in. Okay, thank God. Yeah, so we just trying to stay focused on improving CJC and making it better, and that's our goal, to try to make sure CJC is successful. At this time, anyone have any questions?
Thank you for that. I'll, excuse me, I'll open it up to the committee for questions. Alderman Oldenburg, any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, none at this time. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Hayward, for being here today and for the presentation. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've shared before in my years down here that my previous lived experiences in being justice involved, and a closer, I think, look than some others at that space gives me a different perspective sometimes, but it absolutely puts me in position to want and work and serve in the success that you have shared today. The fact that you said the first night you stayed up and wrote 4 pages alone
Yes.
lets me know that you are committed and that your level of commitment is definitely there. And that's what we need. And we need someone with the heart and the experience that you have shared today in this first 90 days that you've already made this kind of impact and changes that you saw. Just makes you wonder why others didn't, right? You was able to do it in 90 days.
Yes.
Wow. So I guess my only question, again, after saying and publicly sharing that if there's anything that I can do to help you in that success, please don't hesitate to call, is have you worked with any of the organizations outside of us here in the city and your city departments like FCC and No More Jail Deaths, or are you open to talking to them and just hearing and then working towards medians and balances and some of their concerns?
Yes, I am, and I have met with different organizations already, but I haven't met with them. I'm looking for anyone that's willing to help us be successful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I think they will absolutely be able to help with the resident programming piece. And I know some others as well that I can send to you or send to the department to try to make the connection, because that absolutely makes a difference. That resident programming, the outside of, and here, as you said, the residents have shared with you. I know some of them that made differences and for whatever reasons may not have been still active, want to get back active. So this opportunity will be great for them. So thank you again, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Thank you, Chairman. I would echo the Alderwoman of the 10th. Just nice to meet you. This is a lovely presentation. All of your focuses sound, really good, really specific. It seems like you have some clear goals and benchmarks that I'm quite impressed that you've developed in 90 days. I think for me, I'm really curious about your resident education and training piece. I know I see 2 places that are highlighted here, but if you could just elaborate more about the programming that you have there, talk a little bit about like how your vision in expanding that, and I'm really curious about how it works. Obviously, the residents benefit from participating in the programming. Have you seen like just any outcomes that have happened? We've had a lot of discussion about some of the issues being tied to just there being a lack of things for residents within the facility to do. And so I'm just curious about that and any thoughts you have on how that's working or things you'd like to expand to.
Yeah, so I can answer that. The thing is, when I first arrived, the programs was really not being effective because of the shortage of staff. And right now we have the GED going on at CJC. I'm looking to bring like the fathers group at CJC. We have the Relink program that I had in St. Louis County when I was over programs. We have, I forgot the name, but yeah, I have several lists of different programs that I already reached out to that's willing to come in and help us get this up and running. And also after hearing what she's saying too, also, I'm looking forward to meeting other groups also.
Thank you. Thank you. When you get that list developed, that'd be something great to share with the community so we can just have an idea of what's going on in any way that we can be supportive, especially as we begin to enter into budget season. If whatever support you might need for programming, I think that is information we would need by then so that we can make sure we're having those conversations. And then just my second question is, what has your communication with the Detention Facilities Oversight Board been, if any, or if you can speak to the relationship, the communication, status of training, and all those things there?
Well, I met with the Oversight Board probably about 5 times since I've been there. We done had meetings in person. They came to CJC. I went to their meeting online on I believe it was a Tuesday, and met the Oversight Board. But we meet regularly. The commissioner usually come over with some of our staff, and the last time we met, they wanted to close out some cases from 2 years ago. And I also asked them, since I've been here for the 90 days, how many complaints that I have. And they said at this time they don't have any complaints. And I appreciate that, but the thing, I told them I'm willing to work with them to try to get the other cases that they have closed, and that's what we in the process of trying to do.
And to your knowledge, is everyone fully trained and able to exercise their duty?
Who's that, the oversight?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure on, the training, anything like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe there's just be something to follow up on.
Okay. Of the oversight board, you say? Yeah.
Yes.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't really have any questions. Just want to thank you for coming to our office, and I want to echo, or not our office, our committee meeting, and I just want to echo the words of the Alderwoman from the 10th. And I mean, anything that we can do to support you, but also connecting you with community groups that want to try and solve some of these longstanding issues, I think is really important for all of us moving forward. But thank you for being here, and I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
President Green.
I guess good.
Oh, I was going to go to Rasheen after, but you at the bottom here, but I'll go him. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and thank you for being willing to serve in this position. Before you, your predecessor, Mr. Doug Burris, I was very impressed with some of the things that he was doing, and he was only here for a short term, but he brought a lot of, I would say, improvements and communication when it came to this committee, but improvements to the CJC. Have you read, I know when he first kind of came out, I want to say maybe under the Tashar administration, he wrote several pages on what he ended up seeing. I think he also came from St. Louis County, like yourself, seeing as far as like improvements at the CJC. Have you had the opportunity to read his report that he had provided and came out of some of the things that he thought needed changing in the CJC?
Yes, I did. Before I answer that, I just want to let you know, Mr. Burris was the director at St. Louis County back in 2020. I served as the deputy up under Mr. Burris. Excellent person, you're correct. But yes, I read his recommendations, and that's some of the things that we're working on to try to approve some more of his recommendations. Because we already doing some of the things. Because with my recommendations is aligned with what he already had in his recommendation, and that was some because I didn't read his recommendation until like the second week that I was here. But I wrote my recommendation the first week, and then when we compared notes, that we still had some of the same things, but the ones that we didn't have, that's what we're working on right now.
Gotcha. Is he still around at all, or?
Yes, I went to a basketball game with him about two weeks ago.
Okay. Oh, I know at one point maybe I think the city was looking to keep him like for a few weeks consultant, so that's why I was curious if he's still.
I'm not sure. Not sure about that.
Okay. Going back to the programs and going back to, I know you said there was very few, but I know when he came in, one of the presentations he provided to this committee was several programs that he had installed. Also, the library, I think, at the entrance of the CJC. So when people are waiting for their family members, and also books for little children. What programs are you currently have now, and what are you looking to expand on?
And just to answer the library portion of it, the person that he was dealing with the library, she came last month and measured the area where we're going to be putting the library. She came and did some measurements, and we're looking forward to that library. And also, he has library books in the lobby that's still there also. That's something that we, still use down there when people come and do visits, stuff like that. So we have that for the kids. But yeah, we're still working with the young lady with the library, and then with the programs. Right now, like I said, we still have the GED. We have the religious groups that's still coming in, and we have what else they had? I met the guy this morning, but yeah, it's another program that this guy that I met this morning is working with a group of young men with now, but I just can't recall his name.
Okay. One of the things I knew they do in St. Louis County that when I was talking with Mr. Burris to kind of bring to the city was the haircut program. Have you looked into that? I know is super successful where it worked out there. I don't know if that was maybe during your time when you was out there, but
I was over that program.
Okay.
Yeah, I was over programs, and when I brought the barbershop program back then, 2023, and then also we have the beauty shop now also. That is something that I want to bring here also, that we have in St. Louis County.
Okay. I think you mentioned that it had been a problem for several years under Jennifer Clemens Abdullah, post-COVID, when inmates being locked down for 1 hour. One of the concerns that while they was locked down for such a long time was, the lack of staff. And you're saying that, are they now out for 4 to 5 hours, not just at 1 hour out?
No, yeah, I said 3 to 4.
3 to 4.
And, yes, and what I did was I compared it to what we was doing at St. Louis County. Right now, we inside the units with the residents. These guys are in the bubble. So I just informed them that we're going to go with half of the units, let half out, let the other half, all portion out, so we do 2 hours, 2 hours, and then 2 hours, and then on the second shift, they get the hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you looking at any of the, I know you only been there 90 days, maybe more of a, to be on your radar, but also be looking at, as far as recreation, I've done a few of the jail pop-ups, which I'll be probably doing again under your leadership. But when I went in the rec room where there's basketballs, or supposed to be basketballs, the balls was flat. There was no hoop for the balls. Are you looking at any way to upgrade the recreational use for the residents at the CJC?
So that was one of the complaints from the residents when I met with them. We ordered the new basketball goals that they didn't have. They came in last week, so we getting that done. Also, I don't know if you've seen like the gates that you pull down by the windows for residents can't see in other units. I had the guy there yesterday and today. He fixing all the gates, and once we get that completed and get the basketball hoops up, they will have basketball going on. But once we get the gates up and going, they can start doing handball. Go out there and do handball. The thing is, I just didn't want them out there without the gate sliding down, because you have a lot of people with enemies and co-defendants and all that. So that's why you try to have the gate. They can't tell the next unit, make sure you get this guy, make sure you get that guy. And that's something that they do in the jail that you don't want nobody to get hurt. So I'm trying to make sure that everybody's safe, and we trying to do it the right way instead of just letting them out there without the proper security.
Okay. I guess more of a last thing of a comment. As you continue on, I think this board wants to be here to support. I definitely want to support you. Something to be on the to just keep in mind is, the healthcare over at the CJC, making sure that, I know one of the things inmates said, they don't regularly get their, medicine, or when they're asking for medical treatment, they're not always getting the proper response from staff, which may lead to this last question. And I know you only been there for a short term. Have there been any, I guess, conversations with you and the sheriff side, as far as medical and transport, and making sure that residents have access if they need to be transported to a hospital?
So I answer that question first. When I arrived in September 16th, that's when the other sheriff was there, and they wasn't taking no one to medical appointments, anything like that. So we was short. And so when we sending people out to medical appointments, we had to use our staff. So that even made us shorter. Now, after the sheriff is no longer in office over there temporary, but the chief that's acting right now, I met with him 3 times in meetings, and he's doing an excellent job. He's making sure that all appointments are being done and being completed. Last week, we had, I believe, about 5 medical runs. They called me after hours and asked me, can we have one of our officers go with his officer, because they have so many medical. And that's what we doing now. We trying to work together, and that's fine with me. We could work together, and that's all I'm asking, that we work together to get the job done, because we all in this together. And he has been doing a great job since he's been there. So I don't have no complaints at all about what the chief is doing right now. And then to answer your other question on, what was it?
Healthcare.
Healthcare. So the reason why I have everyone do rounds with me, the commission around, because now we can have the opportunity to have the nurses, we have mental health, everybody's with me. And also, just to let you know, when we conduct our rounds, even when we don't have the nurses, medical providers with us, if someone say something wrong with them, we pull them out that cell right then and there and take them to the nurse. That's something that we've been doing since I arrived. We make sure that they go down and see medical ASAP. You know, I think I could count about 10 times we already did that.
Gotcha. Well, glad to hear that there's collaboration, I guess, between you and the interim sheriff. We still, I guess, we're paying two sheriffs at this moment.
Yeah.
We're paying the sheriff and the interim sheriff the same salary. So, but glad that there is good relationships, because I think healthcare is, and making sure people get transported is important. I know that was important to this board. Last very thing, are y'all still using, in your 90 days, are y'all still using the restraint chair?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, we're not using it. Nope.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
President Green.
Thank you for being here today. I have just two very quick questions. One, kind of similar to the healthcare question. And I am happy to see kind of the increased out of cell time, because I know that was one of the things previously that we've had a lot of detainees kind of take issue with. One of the other complaints we previously heard about a lot was not having showers on a frequent basis, maybe only once a week or once every 10 days. Can you kind of talk to what, maybe that looks like now?
So by us letting them out 3 to 4 hours now in a day, this is giving them an opportunity to take showers, also to call their families, and also to attend different religious group programs. So this is why I wanted to make sure that we get this done. When I first arrived, some of the guys that's from St. Louis County, residents that's over there, recognized me when I walked in, and they gave me the lay down on everything that was going on at CJC.
Okay, that is good to know. And then I apologize if I missed it. I saw the bringing in a class of roughly 20 new correctional officers, which is quite impressive. What does that leave us with still in terms of vacancies that we need to fill?
Yeah. So I just met with personnel, Lady Ms. Jackson. She told me that we still have 60, we're still going to be short 60 officers.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still something to work toward, but I'm happy to see that there's some progress being made on that front. So thank you so much, and thanks for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Well, first, thank you for your presentation. As others have pointed out, I think one of the biggest complaints that we were hearing from folks at CJC was that they just were not able to spend time outside of their cells, which I think led to a whole lot of other issues. So hearing that they're able to get out of their cell more frequently is definitely good news. Additionally, seeing the programming that you've set up so that folks have something to do to pass their time there that's also great to hear. And just please don't hesitate to let us know if there's anything we can do to support you. We all certainly want you to be successful.
I appreciate everybody. Tom, appreciate you guys' support, because I'm going to need it. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, with that, we'll move over to discussion item 1, environmental impact of debris removal. We've heard from residents concerns about lead and asbestos and other environmental issues with the debris removal and demolitions taking place following the tornado. And Julian Nix is here to discuss. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. Julian Nix, Chief Recovery Officer for the City Office of Mayor Carrie Spencer. I know Laura Ginn, who is the expert in all things demolition debris removal and oversees the task force, came and testified before the committee a while back on the status of our overall operations. So not a ton has changed since then. So wanted to maybe just provide a little bit more operational updates on where we are with a number of various different items, with recognizing that we'll want to come back before this committee in January to give a more thorough update once we have more answers. But just to kind of give a sense of kind of where we are with the broader work, and so I'm pulling up my most up-to-date document. For where we are, we have across the demolition debris removal effort within the tornado zone, multiple different programs that I think are important to specify because how they're managed and how that work is done is very different across the board. So there is the right-of-way debris removal program that we've been running since the tornado, which is primarily city-led program to remove debris for the public right-of-ways. So that's from our alleys and our streets. You all got a full update on that one in the last meeting. And so those protocols, those monitoring, those tracking, ways of checking the piles on the ground, the asbestos testing, lead testing, those protocols have not changed since the last update or the last meeting that we've had. We've also had the emergency demolitions that have been happening in the zone. There is really the city-led programs that have been about 6. We've only had about 6 total that have been city-led throughout the zone. There has not been a lot. Those have been similar to standards that we also talked about in that last meeting. It is kind of depending on the building type, is treated it's based on the building age. It has different forms of how that demolition is treated. Those had specialized specs with each of the contracts for how you treat asbestos and lead, and it's been monitored for enforcement. So that's another one that's managed directly by the recovery office. And then what we have, which I can talk a lot more about today, but it's still early, is the work on private property assistance and our demolition debris removal program, which is the much larger scale demolition program and debris removal program that is not yet launched. That project has been approved, or at least the dollars have been approved by FEMA, and that is a state administered program. So I can talk a lot more about where we are with that program, but still none of it's final because that is sitting with the state, but I can talk about where we are there. And then the last program is the private demolition debris. So these are individuals, these are owners of those properties who do demolition or debris removal, who hire their own contractors. I will say, if there are questions there, I recognize there might be, that is full process, completely managed by the building division under the normal protocols that apply for all demolition and debris in the zone. My team does not directly monitor all of those efforts, so I won't be able to speak from those today, but we can make sure that at the next hearing, if those are where some core questions exist, that we can kind of bring and make sure that we have the building division here and the right representatives there to answer those questions. So I'm prepared to give more of where we are in the status updates tied to the private property assistance program and that program to give more new updates on that work, and then hopefully we can circle back on some of the others. Perfect. So just in terms of kind of where we are, and I'm going to maybe cover a few of the themes that was sent by President Green and you, Alderman Narayan, around some of the core elements of the program. So one, just as a reminder, the Recovery Office through Laura Ginn as the head of the Debris Infrastructure Task Force has been overseeing the private assistance program. Under this program, there is very distinct elements. There is the actual application, right of entry, qualifications, and shapement of the scope of work and site visits. That's the part that's managed by the city. All aspects of the current plan for private property assistance and demolition debris removal is managed and been vested with the state. And so what that means is all of the respective contracting aspects of that sit with the state. So I can talk about what those are, but I do want to caveat that that's not a city managed responsibility. It's a city partnership with the state, but it's ultimately state-led and executed within that. And so under kind of the program, just to give a little bit of an overview where we are, there are 6 steps in the private property assistance right of entry process. So there's our application review and intake. There's the right of entry to make sure that the person giving us the right of entry has an accurate title. They are the owner. There is a structural inspection and site assessment that's done on site. That is where we look at the property, and all properties are required to be there to understand what's the nature of the site and what's the work that needs to be done. And then they determine what's get triaged into our various programs. That can be our stabilization and repair program. That can be our emergency tarp up program. That can be our demolition program or our debris removal program. And so specifically talking about demolition and debris, again, that part's run by the state, but want to give the overall kind of process. Additional assessments may come on as needed dependent on the work, and then a work packet is ultimately developed, and that's given to the contractor. So in the case of a debris or demolition work, that'll be given to the state and their respective contractor to execute it. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context to that because I think that's important to think about as we walk through and talk through a little bit more about what we know about how those various processes are treated. And I will say I don't represent the state, so I'm not speaking for the state. I'm speaking as best my knowledge of where we are on those efforts to date. So our team is continuing to meet. We expect it to be a lot further along when we first had conversations around our group coming in to testify here, but as the project has changed, things with FEMA has changed, there have been delays, so none of that work has started, neither has the contracting process for the debris and demolition from a formal RFP standpoint to select a contractor. And so what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit more about what the steps will look like from what we know and the conversations we have shaped to date around that work. So as we look at property evaluation for hazardous materials, all properties are undergoing what we call a hazardous site assessment. That's to determine the presence of the debris and the hazardous materials that inform the scope of the work for debris removal. And that is all being managed by Tetra Tech. So there was an RFP that was by that group who's managing it. Our testing process have very strict testing processes for lead and asbestos and other hazardous materials. No lead testing is being kind of completed through this process at the beginning for this right of entry. The way we're doing it is all properties with structures built before 1978, which is at the time where the federal government banned lead paint and a lot of the lead things are just being assumed to be lead-containing buildings. And so that means they're going to get treated with that protocol tied to the demolition and debris to simplify the broader set of operations. As we think about asbestos and asbestos-containing materials, including debris piles on the exterior of the homes and interior, those are all tested. Those piles are tested for that to determine where kind of those respective aspects will go, and then it informs the demolition process, the demolition practices and waste disposal. And then all other properties are inspected for hazardous materials, including freon, cleaning chemicals, and other hazardous substances. And those are also formed by the respective waste streams of which that debris is being eliminated. So these hazardous site assessments are how we get that first understanding of what's there that's then shaped in the work package to determine the work that a contractor would complete, and then it'll follow the prospective waste streams that it's required to follow under both city, state, and federal laws and ordinances. So as we look at demolition and debris removal compliance and monitoring, the general contractor RFP is where those specifications will be. So we have been working directly with the city, with our state partners and our FEMA partners to shape the compliance requirements for all of this work that'll be happening at scale. And those exact specifications will be listed in the ultimate RFP and the contract tied to the contractor for what expected as they perform the work. So only thing I'll say there is a range of our partners have engaged in regular coordination and meetings, and they have been since the time of the tornado, to help design and manage and talk about what those practices must be. They are supporting those finalized contracts. That includes the Missouri Office of Administration, who's doing the procurement of this work. That includes the Missouri Department of Public Safety, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, the Missouri Department of Commerce and Insurance, to make sure we're in line with insurance policies, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who has done debris removal missions across other FEMA projects, the State Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, as well as our city building division, Department of Health, and other agencies. So they are actively shaping those respective processes. They did it for the right-of-way debris removal that shaped the approach to that work, and they're doing the same with this respective work. So what I will say is what we have learned is we are learning there are conflicts between our city laws, state laws, and federal laws. They're also fragmented in where they're located. And so we are starting to see conflicts or issues directly within some of those ordinances and are working through them. I know the team has actively been meeting for the last few weeks, specifically focused on going through all the ordinances and compliances to make sure the broader demolition process and debris removal for this program is in alignment across all of our ordinances, and even working with the City Council's office to clarify unclear aspects of our ordinances. So we do expect that when we come back here in January, that we'll have a view of what that is. We'll also have a view of what are things that are unclear, what are things that are just not best practice, and we'll be bringing some of those things back to this committee to talk about how we might update and think about our ordinance practices to do that while still shaping a debris and demolition removal plan that we can be confident is safe for our residents in the zone. So that has been causing some delays in the program, but like I said, we are working on those as we speak. As we look at hazardous materials disposal process, facilities, and monitoring, and we'll provide most of this in a formal memo. I know I wasn't supposed to be here today because I was out of office, but was around and knew that you all want to hear an update. So we'll provide a formal update directly in response to your email, President Green, that outlines this so that you all have it as well. And then we'll finalize those things, of course, in future meetings. But as we look at the disposal facilities, our local disposal facilities include Balam, Champ, and Republic Services. All of these are used, and depending on the contractor, they will have the option to use each, in the facility capacity, they'll have the option to use any of our local facilities. Generally, these waste disposal locations are at the discretion of the contractor. However, the city and the state, given the size of this debris removal effort, are in direct coordination efforts with all of them to ensure a shared understanding of material types that they're taking and the disposal needs. And we're actively working to develop a debris management plan with Missouri Department of Natural Resources to specifically support the large-scale demolition and debris effort and how we work and work through that. Sorry, I lost my spot. Okay, yeah, and so that will include, like I said, capacities of our various disposal facilities. In terms of how the disposal process is treated, asbestos-containing materials are required, similar to what we've been doing with debris removal efforts from the right-of-way, are required to be transported in line-covered trucks to facilities licensed to accept and properly store asbestos-containing material, and then construction and demolition, broader debris and waste containing lead-based paint is wetted and disposed of as C&D waste in accordance with MDNR regulations. If lead concentrations are high enough to classify the material as hazardous, the material is then transported in line-covered trucks to a facility licensed to accept. These are the protocols we're actively working through. Like I said, these are kind of new. Based on the current plan with the state, certified asbestos workers will be, right now being planned to be required on site during demolition activities and oversee debris segregation and disposal, so we can feel confident that those piles are being separated. And in addition, there will be a third-party debris monitor who there on site photographing, taking pictures to ensure those compliance standards are being met. So we feel confident in the way the conversations are going with the state thus far, the monitoring that'll be in place, that as we begin large-scale implementation, we will be in compliance with the city, state, and federal laws and ensuring the public safety of our residents through that program. In terms of the qualifications of demolition and debris removal contractors, all contractors hired by the city are required to have a city business license, insurance, and bonds in accordance with the contract. This is verified and documented as part of our approval process for any final contracts that are city-led. But we will still, the state is still required to follow city ordinances. They're very aware that the demolition contractors will be required to be certified by the City Demolition Review Board, that asbestos inspection and abatement contractors will be required to be certified by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and the worker names, certifications, a part of that will all be recorded as part of that work. And then there are kind of not any specific licenses for debris removal, hauling, and disposal, but of course they are required to follow the compliance standards tied to it. And like I said, there will be monitors, monitor everything from cradle to grave as it moves through that broader operation. In terms of general soil, air, and water monitoring, all demolition and dust generating activities do require water for dust suppression, stormwater protection are included in those contracts, and that will be expected as part of the work. During the operation of our residential debris sites, you may have remembered that we did do general air monitoring for lead and asbestos and those broader particles in the air. Those are not ongoing, but we are talking about, as we get ready to large scale debris efforts, how do we continue to start those operations again, potentially with partners to do regular air and soil related testing. But it won't be real time at the time for a site, primarily because the timeline of when you actually get the results back and the timeline that things have changed, usually it's not enough to do or change the circumstances of that particular demolition or debris removal. So our biggest focus is making sure that the practice is followed to do it safely at the time there, and to see if we can formalize partnerships to do more of the broader monitoring to inform that our practices are working. In terms of residents' notifications of potential hazards, so there are signs that are posted ahead of demolition debris, and we will have a formalized resident notification program when we are planning demolition debris efforts in an area, to ensure that people are told about the demolitions that are happening and told about ways to stay safe. That program and those details are still being in design, so I don't have a ton to share about that one at the moment. In terms of contract selection, evaluation, and scope of work, no contractors for the state-led private property assistance have been selected. No RFPs have yet been issued, and that will be completed, but that work will be completed by a prime contractor. That release will come from the Office of Administration or the relevant department at the state. So I don't know if it's going to be issued directly from Public Safety through the Office of Administration, but it will follow state procurement practices for that general contractor. But of course, that general contractor will be subject to city laws and ordinances thereafter. So while the city is a partner, the state is the contracting agency, and ultimately they will have all decisions around the contract, but also subcontractors underneath that broader agreement as the sole owner of that general contract. If city contracts are awarded because for whatever reason we do demolition or debris removal efforts that are not covered under the private property assistance program, or specifically the federal program, we will outline the city's respective processes for that at that time. We're still trying to figure out what fully is the FEMA work going to cover, so we can see if the city will have a different or an additional role to play in private property assistance. Lastly, in terms of timelines, the state is still finalizing the request for proposal. No official timelines have been given on when the debris and demolition efforts will start. So we're still hearing February or March as our time frame, with the contract expected to RFP to be by January. But that's the latest update we have from the state, and ultimately that is the state's timeline. Not the cities. Of course, we believe this needs to happen yesterday, so we are working where we can to do the city's part to escalate these as soon as, or as quickly as possible. And so we will have a lot more answers and a lot more details of this scoped out by the time we get to mid to late January, and we understand what the state contract says, who the state contractor is. We hope, we won't know who the contract is, but we'll have a lot more of the details laid out as we continue to meet with the Army Corps. And so both related to this, as well as any other questions around demolition and debris removal, we would love to directly schedule and in advance schedule time with this committee to review any questions that might exist, and set up time to make sure that there can be presence from our office, our task force, but also the respective folks from the building division for any questions tied to how we're treating the broad array of programs within the zone. But with that, I will turn it back to the board for questions.
Thank you for that. I'll open it up to the committee. Alderman Oldenburg, any questions?
He's not on.
Alderman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Nix. I did take down some questions, but it sounds like I might need to wait, I guess, for the update. That's unfortunate. I would like to know if there's a way that we can be in contact or in those conversations with the state. I think that it would be valuable for us coming from being on the ground and in that area. I'll tell you, the building division has been amazing. Ms. Burton has been so responsive in how we've been dealing with the ones that we can take down, but she does the best she can. And when we offer our concerns about different contractors or how the process is going. She definitely takes them into consideration. I tell you, you know, as much as I'm on the ground, the only demolition that I've seen water being used is the one that was off of Union and Kingsbury. And I have seen some demolition that comes over in our communities and either do them overnight or on the weekends when maybe we know we can't get somebody right over there if somebody's reporting. And it's about educating the community to know that they can report and they should report, you know, and the dangers of this. So the education behind this, not just on the ground to our communities, is going to be so important, but having the trusted voices that can do it is going to be what's important as well. And I know the recovery office has resources that can do it. It could be a PSA. It could be anything because, again, as we moved into what you're saying is the broader project, I have a lot of concerns about it, right? So, and I know in our conversations that we've had before, one of my colleagues uplifted an example of how they did it in, I think, Detroit, where they took one route with this debris so that they knew if there was any contamination. And you were on that call as well. We know exactly what route and exactly who had gone by, you know, things of that nature. So if it's a lot of the questions that I see, I wrote down, I might just need to, again, appeal to be able to speak with or have a call with the work that's being done at the state so we'll know and so that they'll know firsthand our concerns and how they can meet their needs. But I guess a couple of the things, let me see. Can you answer, and if you can't just say it and then I'll move around with it, but can you answer who will be doing the soil and air testing once this broader debris project starts?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's not like a consistent soil or air testing tied to a specific project, primarily because by the time you've done the soil and air testing, that's work's already been done. So what there is there's testing of the piles and the debris that is there at the time that should let us know if it's containing lead or asbestos. What we are working on is how do we in general track air quality, how do we in general talk soil testing, but I'm not prepared to say what that's going to look like. We're still in conversations on what that's going to be because it's really expensive in terms of, and kind of the data sometimes can be not great depending how you implement it, so we're still designing what that's going to look like.
Okay, and do we, didn't hear, unless I missed it, do we already have a site selected or estimated time when we will be selecting a site to where this stuff will be, the lead and the asbestos or the other contaminated debris will be disposed or kept?
Yeah, so as I said, those will be at the local facilities who are trained in that, and we're going to be working through an active debris management plan for how those waste streams will be sorted and where they will go, and validating and verifying the facilities that can handle that type of debris. And what I could also say to your question around routes, there's a very tight process around programs of this size and magnitude. So the monitoring and tracking that debris, where it goes, who picks it up, what route it goes, does get heavily documented and tracked of an operation of this size. And so I do feel confident that we will have heavy amount of tracking and monitoring to ensure that this operation is done safely at scale.
And I did hear your comments about compliance and with the state being hopefully in compliance with our state and local laws, but just can you speak to that and can we make sure that they know that we have a level of concern just about our own compliance, right? We're dealing with MWWBE contract. We're dealing with making sure that people are, you know, in compliance. Whatever that means when they're doing the work here. So we would hope that the state shares that and it is aligned with that. But if you think that that would be valuable to have that add that to the conversation, please do, because we just want to make sure that if we are not going to be a part of this election or nobody from here, if it's all going to happen at the state, how will we have our voices heard to make sure that, you know, it's aligned with the work that we all back down here at the city?
Yeah, no, and I think what that means, unfortunately, it'll follow state procurement. What they will be required to follow is anything tied to the that are around how they do the work. In terms of those other pieces, naturally, we're constantly in conversations, but unfortunately, it will follow state procurement laws because they have to follow what their procurement practices are, which also means that they sometimes can't add things to procurement requirements that aren't within the state boundary. So I will say, if there are specific questions, specific concerns that this committee or the Board of Alders has that they want from the state, my ask would be collectively, if Alderman Orion or President Green can collect those from the Board of Alders, write out what those questions are, we can work to make sure that we are asking and get back to you on what those answers are and have them for you all in our GA meeting or before as we work through them. So I would say for all of these types of questions, write them down, ask them, and we're happy to be advocates in having those conversations. And we may say some of this is like, this actually makes sense as a question, but that's going to be the right question that we do once we have the general contractor on the ground, because that's not a state question, or this actually is a procurement question. And so we want to address this before we get to a certain stage with it. So I would say if there are questions you all have specifically about the choice of the general contractor and that RFP, those are the types of questions that I would ask sooner rather than later, because that is probably going to be the process that very soon is going to get locked. Other things can change over time around what exactly some of the operations looks like. Are there some logistics we need to work out, but the broad strokes of it for the GC at least get set early.
So I hear what you're saying. A lot of my questions are clearly must be that you're saying that I need to be talking to the state, and that's all I'm asking to is a connection. Even if we don't get the questions together, I think there's some kind of representation. It could be Alderman Orion as president of Public Safety Committee, whatever needs to be at the table to make sure that they're part of the conversation moving forward, because there are a lot of concerns here. And so I guess my last couple of questions, and they might just be for the state, but who will, I'm trying to think if you answered it before I ask it, but you said about the timeline, but who will be negotiating the disposal? Is it the state or is it us?
Who will be negotiating?
Negotiating the disposal, the disposal project, period. Is that the state?
The state will manage all aspects of execution tied to their respective contract in accordance with city law. So if it is not a city law for how it has to be done or ordinance, then they have discretion on that aspect of the mission. But it will be in alignment with city ordinance, and our team has been going through with them on all of our various ordinances and their various ordinances and working kind of through where there might be differences or things related to. But if it's not an ordinance, they have discretion and choice.
And will they be reporting all of this back to you all, and then we will have to get that report from you, or will they be reporting back to the Department of Public Safety, or is it this? Do you know anything about what the reporting will be once this project gets rolling?
What type of reporting?
All of it. Any of the questions that we're having, any of the concerns, just the same as we ask you to come and report to us monthly, regularly about what's going on with the programming, what the data is, what it's showing here, the compliance issues that we're having, the disposal concerns that we're having. What will be, I don't want it to be a thing where we ask you to come and then you say we have to talk to the state, I guess is what is the best way for me to put it. So what will be their reporting moving forward? When will we know that, when will we have the answers to timeline questions, all these other answers? And are the answers only going to you and then you, or how would that work?
Yeah, so I will tell you the legal answer, and I will tell you what our hope is. Legally, the state, as long as they're in our compliance laws, are not required to report or do anything beyond the scope of what's required by our sets of ordinances. That being said, they have been strong partners and continue to be strong partners. So as it shapes out, I think we can shape what that looks like. My guess is it's not going to be the state who we have a lot of questions for. It'll eventually be the general contractor and the person in their office administration who oversees the project. Transparently, we have been laser focused on getting the requests for proposal out and getting those detailed outlined more than we have been on what the update process is going to be once it's there, because we really want to make sure that we can do the work to get the effort started. But if there are areas where you're like, hey, we would like to say that, can we start to lay out what that structure looks like? And this committee would say, we'd want to hear an update on these particular things monthly, we can run those through the state and see if they'd be willing to do that. And I think we can continue to have those conversations. Again, this effort won't start until likely a contractor RFP won't even go out till January. So we have time to talk about what the reporting looks like after the fact. So I would say if those are questions or concerns that you all say, hey, we'd love to make sure we come back to discuss these particular topics, I'd love to include that in the broader list of questions or topics for us to come back and discuss in our meeting in January.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's also, we don't have to wait till January. I know we had a call and the Board of Alders had something kind of ran over on a hearing this week, but I know we have our biweekly. Our hope is that we can continue to answer these questions in those instead, so that we don't have to go till the next hearing or the next month to be able to answer questions as we move through.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Alderwoman Velasquez, are you still on?
I am still on. I
questions?
don't have any questions. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Nix, for being here. One of the things I heard you say times, which I guess is a question and maybe it needs to be a charge on the board, you said the state follows what the city ordinance are. So I guess to make sure that there is more reporting or items that need to be spelled out, or are you thinking, or are we lacking any, I guess, detail when it comes to our ordinance to make sure that I think not only residents are aware of what's going on, but this debris gets picked up and put in a place or wherever it's going to be that is safe for the residents, especially in an area that already has not the best air quality from where the tornado hit.
Yeah.
And I know you're not the legislative side, but
No.
as you're looking through this process, saying like what needs to be strengthened.
Yeah, no, Alderman, if there's anything you've known about me and Robert the mayor here, I don't leave stuff that's broken if it's in my shop. And so what I can say is that as we've looked at these policies and we've been working through the state, we are documenting where there's conflicts, where there are things that the Army Corps is like, this is extremely onerous and makes demolitions expensive, but aren't actually additive to public safety. We are looking at areas where it's extremely unclear because we're like, what does this mean? And how do we verify what this means? So for example, I know one of the questions came up and said that we have to test a representative pile. What is a representative pile? What does that mean? And when things are that vague, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation and, quite frankly, issues with ability to drive compliance. And so there are things like that that we are flagging as we go, getting clarity from our legal and counsel's office. So we'll make sure that as a part of this work, especially if it either slows down the ability to perform this or it hampers our ability to actually make sure these things are happening in compliance, that'll be a lot of conversations. And some of that is the city's enforcement side, and for us to make sure we're doing the right aspects on enforcement, which I know have been conversations, from what I have heard, have been issues that we have consistently had around compliance, around demolition, debris removal practices across the city. And so we will be working to tackle those and identify gaps and work with the Board of Alders to solve the legislative problems where there are legislative problems and solve the operational executive problems where there are issues within our city departments.
Yeah, and I do want to give, all our departments are understaffed and underpaid, and I know the building division, works very hard to try to, get stuff done, and always any department, we could be doing more with the board, right? Any city department probably could be doing more from what residents would want to see, but, I guess just my concern is clearly we have an ordinance or a law in place that when, demolition happens that it's supposed to be wet, I would just hope as these contractors are going out that, that is really being enforced. I've had issues just in my little short time of being an alder for about 2 years of demolition happening and those buildings not getting wet sprayed before getting knocked down. And again, over in the area where like the tornado hit, I only could imagine, these are a lot of old homes. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was out cleaning up probably the day after over in Alderwoman Keys Ward. Lady was like, don't touch that. It could be asbestos in I don't know if it's the shingles or whatever it was of the house, but we really need to make sure that as things ramp up that we are making sure that enforcement that has been an issue for a while, that is not an issue at this moment. And if that's what we can do from the board side, but you are on the executive side who have the say-so over these departments, to make sure that that is done. Have you guys looked at if there is a pile or if lead or asbestos is known during this process of how to like alert residents so that they are aware?
Yeah. Or you mean like, for example, if we find lead or asbestos in a pile outside a house, how are we alerting?
I mean, outside of a house, as we get deeper into the debris pickup and moving debris, and I'm assuming hopefully some of this stuff, like you said, would be tested. There is as you said, the state says test a random pile. I'm just thinking of like how, and maybe it's not a now thing, but it definitely should be a thought of if there is contamination found, like how to alert residents about that.
Okay. Yeah, so I know Department of Health has been directly involved on it. I don't have answers directly to what happens when it happens, but I'll make sure that if we include that in the list of questions around how exactly we're addressing notification. But I think it'll probably depend on, do we think this is just a treatment of the disposal of the waste, or do we think this requires notification of someone who placed a pile? And then we can kind of think through some of those communications, but I don't have a great answer for you on that one, Alderman Aldridge, but noted.
Gotcha. And I'm going to keep it light and pass on to the president. I know she has a few questions. I would just say, I think something that Alderwoman Clark Hubbard brought up, and I know we have these weekly, monthly calls from your office, but as we talk about, we always like to talk about transparency and being transparent. I think it's just, as this debris at some point is starting to be removed and put in locations, and as demolition really started to ramp up, I think, how we have those public meetings around the $30 million of RAMP's interest, that I don't know if it's this committee, public safety, I would say health, but they just meet like online. Maybe this is more of a committee that it should go to for the public to be aware, and the information that you give to us and alders is great. We're just one person to be able to get it out. But I've learned since being at the board, these public meetings, I think the Board of Aldermen does the best job, as I always say, of informing the public of what's going on. One, is being put out on YouTube. Two, we allow the public to also come and to give input and give suggestions, because as lawmakers, we're not the end all or be all, and we don't know it all. But as things start to ramp up, I think it would probably be important for this committee to look at, what is like monthly meetings look like on debris cleanup, where we are, where is it being located, where is, if there's any contamination, where's the demolition process, like what is being knocked down and all that, so that there is some transparency, because I do think people in North St. Louis, already a lot of folks, but especially in North St. Louis, don't trust government, and on top of it, don't with the tornado that happened, I already feel like before the tornado that they voiced and that their community was being overlooked, and probably even more now. So we can't change that, and that disinvestment that happened decades and decades, but we can start, I think, show that this administration, this Board of Aldermen, during this unprecedented time of a tornado, want to get it right, and it's upon us to make sure that we share information, even if it's not good at times, with residents, so that they know about what's going on in their community.
Yep. No, that sounds good. So would love, as mentioned, if we want to figure out, similar to how we do transparency regularly on what's happening with funding, if we want to do something similar around public safety, specifically around demolition debris from a health standpoint, as long as I get advance notice, that we can kind of work on what that regular cadence or agenda is and what content we hope to see. We'll do our best to work to make sure we have that transparency. And then to your point around the community, we know that our community engagement as an office has a lot of room to improve with regular coordination with residents. We have since brought on additional capacity with Key Strategic Group that we're thankful to the Board of E&A for putting some money toward a contract alongside dollars invested from a lot of our public or social partners to help us make sure that we're doing more regular community engagement. So we will plan to have many more on the ground engagements with residents as we scale up these massive programs, and we'll need more regular communication around what's happening in the neighborhood. But quite frankly, we'll need to hear from people in the neighborhood. And this room isn't accessible to expect people to come downtown. So our goal is to, in the new year and even starting this month, to start to have more regular meetings directly in the community to share what's happening on the ground and address their concerns directly as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if you go in the community, one of the things the budget committee does is we take those meetings in the community. So I know we always willing to do that and even probably collaborate in partnerships because we all have our own different audience. And being able to get that message out there is important. So when you all are doing things in community, especially in communities that some of the alders here represent, and even not, just keep us in the loop so that we can all work together to make sure as many people know about it. And then last question, what is the timeline, I guess, the state to come in and do some of this work? I know there's money that is allocated that we continue to talk about the state. I have little trust in the state. That's why I came back home and left Jeff City. But what is that timeline? Because they've allocated those dollars a long time ago, and I think that's part of a bigger bill of ballot candy to get the Kansas City stuff, and then be like, oh, and we're doing stuff with Tornado. But it has been, maybe because I'm not a state rep anymore, it's been quiet to know what's going on with those dollars and when the dollars are actually going to hit to help the residents with the debris removal. And I'm assuming those funds, that 100 million funds, is for that debris.
Yeah, so that's what the conversation has largely been around, is the demolition debris removal. So naturally, it's tied to any of our demolition debris removal efforts. There's a city and a state match that's required to fund the demolition and debris mission. So even if the federal government puts in $150 million, there's an expectation that the city puts in part. Right now, where we are is we're getting clarification on what's covered under the first initial thing that's been approved by FEMA. There is a second element that we are working that we realize not included in this initial mission that we're hoping to get included, but we're still working live through some of the details of the scope. So when a lot of that shapes how much of those funds need to be set aside for that match, and then what happens with the rest. So that is ultimately the discretion of the state, but this has not happened fast enough. We wanted this work to start in November, December, and transparently, the new operations with FEMA operating this differently, with this not having been done before, at every juncture we hear a new delay or a new timeline. And so we're working. We have, like I said, we have not gotten a formal committed work plan from the state.
Yeah, and I know y'all working hard in the recovery office, but I guess to that question is we don't have a timeline yet.
Yeah, no, not from the state. No, we do not.
Gotcha.
Right now, like I said, the thing I have gotten is January is when they hope to have the RFP launched by, and hope to have by February, March, but it is not a firm timeline.
Okay, is there a deadline on that money? I would have to go back to read the state bill, but I know it was appropriated. But is there a timeline? Could that money be called back for a new budget cycle?
Well, technically speaking, without them allocating it, technically speaking, anything can arguably be clawed back. But the governor, what I will say is what I have heard is the governor has continued committed to $700 million, is committed to the city of St. Louis, and they're committed to using it to help support our recovery. That is kind of where we are, but we continue to monitor what's happening with the budgeting process and making sure that is both true in his commitment, but also within broader conversations. But we have regular conversations and have heard with all confidence directly stated that those dollars are intended to be for and to stay for the city of St. Louis in our recovery effort.
That's all I got right now.
President Green.
Thank you, and thanks for rearranging your schedule to get here today. I think a lot of my questions are probably more centered toward the building division, and so I'm looking forward to either having a interim conversation with them or getting them here in January to kind of echo some of what Alderwoman Clark Hubbard said. I think one of the complaints we're just hearing a lot from is that there's current debris removal and demolition that's taking place. And there's not often sprayers used, there's not often kind of compliance with our local ordinances. And I think that kind of goes into a longer term thing that I think we need to start thinking about. Because I understand that, you said, okay, we test debris like before we remove it to know what's in it. My concern is that debris has been sitting there for a long time. And there's been rain, there's been, all sorts of things that can cause those contaminants that are part of that debris to go into the soil, go into the ground, stay in place longer than, even after that debris is removed. And so I think we kind of long-term need to be thinking about what is a long-term, monitoring process so that, we test it while it's sitting there before we remove it so that we know the proper facility that it needs to go to, but we also do that ongoing follow-up, because what I don't want to have happen is us to be sitting here in 10 years and we found out that, there's a whole bunch of lead and asbestos kind of debris that might be microscopic, might not, be big things that you can see, but has still, seeped into the soil and the groundwater or whatever and has made it so that it's making people sick. And so I think that's a lot of my big concern, is that even beyond kind of the initial removal, how are we thinking about monitoring this long term to ensure it's safe for people to live there, that monitoring health outcomes for folks to, make sure they're not getting illness as a result of this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can answer that today, but that's my biggest concern.
I can't answer today. I can't say we share that concern, that it is we're actively thinking about and talking about. So as I had mentioned, like I said, we can't do the real-time test. Like the real-time testing is not as effective as it is to test the piles. But your points around how do we do broader air monitoring and how do we do soil testing enough to know that there are risks or concerns or questions, that is an active conversation. So I don't have an answer for you yet, but we have been committed to saying that at the time where we launch, ideally wide-scale demolition debris removal, which will be a long time effort. We will be undergoing that effort for over a year, that we have some way to feel good or to at least be able to get indicators of if there's something wrong. Okay. And so that is a commitment that we are working directly through to try to make sure we have a path for.
Okay. And if there's, any partnership or work that we can do on our end to be helping with that, I just, my biggest fear is 10 years from now, we end up with some class action lawsuit or something because we didn't appropriately remediate all of this. And the longer it sits, the more concern I think I have about it spreading. And so that,
the good part is, like I had mentioned, we have a whole group of DNR who are helping us think through these exact types of questions as well. So we have that. You also probably saw WashU recently announced things there. So we are in conversation with various stakeholders to figure out that approach. So like I said, I don't know exactly how that final picture will take hold, but those are the conversations that are ongoing.
Okay, sounds good. And then let's just connect with the building division on compliance at some point in time, because I think that's the bigger issue. We put all these great ordinances in place. We got to make sure they're enforced. Yeah. So thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, you had a follow-up?
Thank you. Actually, my follow-up was basically what President Green just said. One of the Alderman Aldridge brought up about the health concern and dealing with that. It immediately made me think about when I first got down here, the opportunity y'all had to fight and advocate for Teresa Page, who was 15 years later fighting for her life from just exposure on one site. So we have to have it on record and do everything we can to get this right, because the worst case, like President Green just said, is that the city will be sued in class action. Our grandchildren or great-grandchildren or fighting for their lives because of something that I just want to believe. That was 2020, so 2025, and knowing how things change and knowing how things evolve, there has to be some better and best practices that we can look to do this and make sure that we're working with the right entities to do this. So I just wanted to echo what they both said and be on the record saying, please consider whatever we need to do and use us here as your advocates, because we know we've seen it, we fought for it before, and we know that we can get it right if we work together on it.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation. I think we're all roughly on the same page here. I know from doing some digging just in general that if your house was built between 1900 and 1980, it's almost certainly has asbestos in it. I think that a lot of the houses in the impacted area there would fit that criteria. And I agree with Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, the things that I'm hearing about these demos taking place with no sprayers on. And I understand that those are private demos and, you know, not under your purview, but we do need to make sure that we're getting sprayers on these demos, or else my concern is that we're going to have a 1.5 mile wide swath through the city that just is uninhabitable in the future. But I think we're all in agreement there. I don't think anyone's arguing that that's the outcome that we want. So thank you so much. And I know that there's people here with public comment, so I'll move to them.
All right. Thanks all.
Is there anyone else who wants to sign up to speak? Mr. Clinton McBride.
Clinton McBride, 3643 Bowen Street. I'm a resident of the First Ward. Appreciate the opportunity to address you this afternoon. I'm going to be very brief. I think those were very fantastic questions. This is something that is, you know, it's a dangerous and critical situation. And if we don't do this right, we're going to make the problem worse and not better. And I know that that's not what anyone here wants. You know, I only had one other question, and I know that Mr. Nix is gone, but I did wonder, you know, after those piles are tested, how long do they sit there before they're actually disposed of? Because as you guys know, you know, lead, asbestos, that stuff gets airborne and it drifts in the wind. So I just wanted a clarification on that. So maybe in the next meeting we can get a little bit more clarification on that. But I really appreciate, Chairman, you calling this committee of the whole meeting, or rather Public Safety Committee today to discuss this. So thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any written comment?
We have none.
All right. Does anyone have any announcements?
We just have one that just raised their hand to speak online.
Okay. We'll move to them.
I think it was actually Ms. Sonia. I think she has a question.
Oh, Alderwoman?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make sure I was here when we take roll to adjourn.
Oh, got it.
Thank you.
Code her.
Then at this point, I'll move that we excuse Alderman Oldenburg. Oh, no, he was here.
Everyone was present.
No one was present. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We stand adjourned.